The U.S. government has a system which in some ways is crazy, right? So we take our top 3,000 executives and every 4 or 8 years we say, sorry, you're fired, out you go, and we bring in 3,000 more. Well, let me ask you, would you invest your retirement in a company that replaced its top 3,000 executives or equivalent proportion every 4 years? Of course you wouldn't. Would you do it with Apple Computer? No, you'd say, how are they going to innovate? How are they going to roll out important programs? How are they going to keep their brand strong? You'd say that's ridiculous, but we do that, right? And the press, I think, forgets the larger context here, which is we've got a government with a particular design that in some ways builds in instability and inefficiency, and we forget to think about big picture things like what's the best way to design a personnel system for a modern organization? Let's figure out what we need to do. Let's find the right people to do it. Let's put them together. Those kinds of big picture questions get lost in the transition, and it's unfortunate. No matter how smooth the transition, this is going to be as challenging a transition of power as we've seen probably in our lifetimes. And the reason is that both candidates have really high negative approval or disapproval. So people are often not voting for the candidate themselves and what they're excited about and endorsing their program, rather they're voting against the other candidate. And so you're going to get a president come into power who is going to be highly disapproved or unliked by a significant portion of the population right from the get-go. So when somebody like Richard Nixon was elected, even a majority of Democrats viewed Nixon favorably. Today, that is not the case, right? That it's a very small percentage of Republicans that will view Hillary Clinton positively or Democrats that will view Donald Trump positively. And that's really hard for governing, because what that means is not only do you not have public approval, but you have members of Congress who can safely sit and say, I don't have to cooperate, I don't need to cooperate because my constituents don't want me to cooperate. And so it's really hard to get stuff done in that environment. Somebody that struggled out of the gate was Bill Clinton. So Bill Clinton was elected, delayed naming a White House staff, made some bad decisions as a result early on in his presidency. You may remember he stopped all air traffic into LAX to get a haircut on the runway at LAX right at the beginning of his term. Rather than focus on his signature issues, the economy and healthcare, right out of the gate, he was embroiled in a debate about gays in the military, which was not part of his initial plan. So those kinds of choices are influenced by mistakes early on in terms of getting things right. People who've gotten it better are George W. Bush and Barack Obama. Both have done a better job out of the gate. So let me talk a little bit about Obama. So his team coming in did a lot of research in advance about what transitions involve, how to be successful at them. He learned from past presidents. And then George W. Bush had set things up to work well with the new administration. So Obama named a White House staff early. They got their national security team in early. They got their cabinet named early. They did a lot of vetting well in advance of Inauguration Day. So they had a team in place more quickly than most presidents have. And so they had a much easier time at the beginning, and they had to, right? So if you'll remember, economic stimulus, you've got an economic crisis. There was a threat on the National Mall during inauguration, and so if they hadn't had their act together, right, this could have been chaos right at the beginning. The first thing that I would do is I would reduce significantly the number of political appointees. It doesn't have to be across the board, but you could imagine a plan which would require agencies themselves to identify a set of positions that probably could be filled by career professionals. People who have spent their life working in that agency, that have expertise, that know what the initiatives are, they know how to manage, they know how to get things done. Give those people more authority, take some of the political folks out, and then let's start from that basis. That'd be the first thing I'd do. The second thing I would do is I'd think about serious civil service reform. And what that means is, how do we get the best people? How do we promote the best people? How do we retain the best people? And that means, how do we not hire bad people? How do we get people out who aren't doing the job? And how do we take strugglers and figure out how to fit them well if they're doing sort of in between? Those are big picture questions, and those are the two things that I would focus on right away.